Before the world knew Iran, there was Persia. Before Persia became an empire, there was one king. His name was Cyrus. He did not just rise to power, he changed the fate of the ancient world. From one man came an empire of fire, stone, conquest, and legacy. Before Iran, one king changed everything. But Cyrus did not enter a world waiting for him. He was born into a region divided by rival kingdoms, shifting loyalties, and older powers that believed the future already belonged to them. To the west stood Lydia, rich and confident. To the east and south stretched ancient lands of trade, temples, and old dynasties. And above them all stood the great shadow of Media, the power that ruled over the Persians before Cyrus ever wore a crown. At first, Persia was not the center of the world, it was the edge of it. That is what makes Cyrus so dangerous to history's assumptions, because he did not begin as the ruler of a world empire. He began as the man nobody expected to change the map. And yet somehow, he did. By the mid-6th century BCE, Cyrus had overthrown the Median ruler Astyages and united Medes and Persians under his leadership, laying the foundation of the Achaemenid Empire. That was the first turning point, because once Persia stopped being a subject people and became a rising power, everything around it began to shift. What had once been a kingdom became a force, and what had once been regional was now imperial. Most conquerors are remembered for what they destroy. Cyrus is remembered for something more unsettling, what he built. He defeated powerful enemies, including Croesus of Lydia, but military victory alone is not why his name survived. Ancient sources and later tradition remember him not only as a conqueror, but as a ruler associated with kingship, order, and unusual tolerance. That is where the story changes. Because this is not just the rise of a warlord, this is the rise of a ruler who understood that empires do not last by fear alone. They last when defeated peoples decide they can live under your rule. That was Cyrus's real weapon, not just horses, not just armies, not just siege and steel, but legitimacy. He knew how to take power and then make that power look natural, make it look rightful, make it look permanent, and that is far harder than conquest. Then came Babylon, and Babylon was not just another city. It was one of the great symbols of the ancient world, wealthy, fortified, sacred, and old enough to believe that men like Cyrus would eventually disappear, while Babylon remained. But in 539 BCE, Cyrus took the city, and with that conquest, the balance of the Near East changed. Sources tied to the period portray the fall of Babylon as a decisive moment in the birth of Persian imperial power. This was the moment when Persia stopped rising and started ruling. And here comes the twist. For many rulers, taking Babylon would have ended the story. For Cyrus, it began a second one. Because after the conquest, he did something that made his name travel far beyond Persia. He allowed displaced peoples in Babylonia to return to their lands, and this included Jews exiled during the Babylonian captivity.
The decree has come. We are free to return to Zion.
Ancient and modern sources connect Cyrus with allowing the return and ever rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. That matters, not just because it was politically smart, not just because it helped stabilize a new empire, but because it gave Cyrus a reputation few conquerors ever receive, not only victor, but liberator. And once a ruler gains that kind of memory, he stops belonging only to his own nation. He enters world history. This is the part many people miss when they hear the word Iran today. Modern headlines make countries feel immediate, temporary, almost trapped in the present, but Iran did not begin in the present. Behind the modern state stands a far older civilizational memory: Persia, empire, kingship, endurance, and the idea that this land once stood at the center of the known world. The historical link between ancient Persia and the broader history of Iran is foundational in standard references on ancient Iran. and Cyrus. And Cyrus stands near the beginning of that memory,
These glyphs affirm
not
the
as a
ancient
perfect
lineage.
man,
The relief
not as
matches
a
our
myth
records
untouched by
precisely.
politics,
These words have
but as
carried
one
us
of those
through the
rare
darkness.
rulers
We give
whose
thanks for
victories
our
did more
survival.
than expand borders. They changed how power itself was imagined. That is why his shadow stretches so far, into Persian memory, into Jewish memory, into the history of empire itself. He did not simply win, he redefined what it meant to rule. So when people ask what came before Iran, the answer is not just Persia. The answer is a man, a king who rose from a smaller world and forced the ancient world to rearrange itself around him. A conqueror who took Babylon, a ruler remembered for allowing the exiled to return, a founder whose legacy reached far beyond the empire he built. Before Iran, one king changed everything.